City of God Church and Inside Out Youth. Hey, I'd like to take a few moments of your time to talk to you about a growing problem here in Springfield, Ohio, that is also a serious problem, and to ask you for your help, wherever you are, whoever you are. I'd like to ask you to please consider helping with the homelessness crisis in Springfield, Ohio. A lot of folks may not even be aware that there is such a crisis and that it's been growing. But really, ever since this COVID issue came into our lives here earlier this year, we had a number of homeless people in the city, and that number has grown dramatically. In fact, the city of Springfield has recently declared homelessness to be a public health crisis, actually, and for good reason. The number of homeless people has just grown dramatically. From what I'm told, some estimates say there were somewhere around 50 people back when we started this in March, and now that number has swelled to well over 350 people or families that are homeless. And so many of those families are families with kids. There are actually hundreds of kids that are living on the street right now, living without a certain place to lay their head, moving from couch to couch or family to family to try to find shelter. And even though there are a lot of people working on this, there are a lot of good people that are working very hard to try to do something about this. They're trying to put folks up in hotels and motels to cover some of the overflow. They're trying to find resources. There are a lot of people in the city government, the county government, and other agencies that are trying to do something. But even with all that's going on, there are still hundreds of people on the street. And so I'd like to talk to you about a couple of possibilities and point out a couple of possible solutions that I've seen. And I do want to just really commend all of the people in the city and other agencies that have been trying to help. There are a lot of good people, and there are a lot of resources that are being spent. Millions of dollars have been contributed or committed from the government to pay for hotel and motel rooms and to try to get people off the street. And that's certainly a better option than people living on the street. I don't think it's a good option, and I'll tell you why in a second, but it's certainly better than someone living in the cold or sleeping under a bridge, especially with the winter weather coming on. But we don't think that the hotel option is the best, and we do think that there need to be more shelters available to folks, and we might even have some ideas to help with that. So one of the reasons we don't think hotels are a good solution, and that's where most of the money is going right now. We had maybe 50 families on the streets back in April or March, and as that has swollen to hundreds. Part of the reason that number is so high now is not only have the number of people needing services increased, but our local homeless center has closed due to the COVID thing. They've been closed since sometime in the spring. So not only has the number of people needing help increased dramatically, but the amount of help available, the amount of space available to help has decreased also a lot. And that really is kind of tragic. To try to make up for this, to try to fill the gap or the need, the money has been directed, and additional monies also has been directed to putting people in hotels, families in hotels. Now, when you first hear that, it might sound like, wow, that's a really good thing. And like I said, it is better than people sleeping in the cold. But a lot of us, when we first hear that, what we envision is an experience like what you or I might have if we took our family on vacation and we stayed down at the Marriott. Unfortunately, that's not the experience that most of these kids in homeless situations are having in these hotels. As a youth organization, Inside Out, it comes into first-hand contact with a lot of the impoverished youth, and a lot of them are living in challenging situations. A lot of the folks that end up in homeless situations have life-controlling issues that have led to that. And when they're given a free pass at a hotel to take their kids and drop them off at, we have heard of kids being left days at a time in seedy hotels like and I don't mean to put down any of the hotels, but if you're familiar with Springfield, the Red Roof Inn and the Executive Inn and places like that are not good places to leave unsupervised children for days at a time. And we've actually heard of kids that have been left for days at a time, 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds, 12-year-olds, days at a time in these hotels while their parents might be partying in other cities, even in Dayton or Columbus. And I heard of one boy that slept in the hallway at the Red Roof Inn one night because he didn't know where his mom was or when she was coming back. He couldn't get a hold of her and couldn't get into the hotel room. Imagine the predators and the dangers that are the kids are being exposed to. I even heard, I haven't verified this myself, but I even heard that an infant of one of the families actually died in one of the hotels under this care recently. So it seems to me that although again, I commend the people that are trying to help, and it's certainly better than leaving people out in the cold, but it seems like we can still do better. So I'd like to see some better options for folks than sticking these folks in hotels where so often the kids, they're not there with their parents, they're not being properly cared for, and it's not an environment where they can get their studies or schoolwork or things like that done. And I could go on and on with some of the things that I've heard that happen there. The other thing I want to mention is the possibility of reopening a shelter or establishing a shelter ourselves. That's one of the things that we're considering. When we first heard that the homeless shelter had closed, we believed that they did that because they had to, as a state order or as a government health order. But in fact, that is not, we've since learned that is not really the case. There's really nothing in the guidelines, the community guidelines. There's nothing that has actually required the IHN or any other homeless shelter to close. For whatever reasons, their particular situation, they felt that it was in their interest to close. I suppose maybe they at that location were not able to meet the guidelines put forth by the CDC or the Housing and Urban Development or the State Health Department. But there certainly are homeless shelters open all across the country. I've personally checked with the homeless shelters in Dayton and Columbus, Cleveland, Lorain, so many other cities in Ohio. In fact, I'm not aware of any that have closed their homeless shelters, and I've personally checked with those cities, and I know that they're open, and they've been open throughout this situation. In fact, the guidelines, as you can see right here, I've got this web page up. The guidelines from the CDC specifically say that continuing homeless services during community spread of COVID-19 is critical. Homeless shelters should not close or exclude people who are having symptoms or test positive for COVID-19 without a plan for where these clients can safely access services and stay. Homeless shelters should not be closing, folks. They just shouldn't be happening. And so I don't want to criticize any of the folks involved because so many people are working so hard. But after I've become aware of this situation, I can't help wondering what we can do to help and why the community, there's so many folks, like I'm sure people watching right now, that really do care and maybe just weren't aware that there's a problem out there. After I became aware of it, I mean, for a long time, we haven't really had a focus on homelessness, not because we don't care, but just because there are other agencies that are taking care of that have facilities for it and have more training. And so we were under the impression that the need's being met. But now that we know that it's not, a couple of weeks ago, I had a conversation with some community leaders about this. And later that day, I went out to dinner with my wife. And on the way home, I stopped at Speedway to get some gasoline and something to drink. And as I was walking in there was a homeless fellow sitting laying on the sidewalk. He had all of his clothes in his duffel bag and was sleeping as the weather was getting colder and colder. And I couldn't help thinking about the thousands of square feet of empty space that we have at our church facility that is empty and warm and would have to be a much, much better sleeping arrangement than that cold sidewalk, and much safer. And I couldn't help but think about the thousands of pounds of food that we have in our freezers, literally thousands of pounds that is there for the purpose of helping families in need and serving free meals to kids and their families in the community. And how would I explain to Jesus, walking past so many people in need while we have so much resources available to help? And to be honest with you, I lost sleep that night. Uh, I, I felt almost as if I should have woke that man up at that very moment. And the only reason I didn't was because we didn't have the staff available to watch the building, to supervise the building if we had. But I haven't been able to get it out of my mind. Maybe we should try to put together that staff. We have the resources available to do something about this problem. We have the food available to feed the entire population of homeless folks if we needed to. We just need people to help cook the food and wash the dishes when we're done, honestly. So I want to ask you, those of you who are watching, whether we do it. And I'm sure that Inside Out is not the only facility available. A lot of facilities, I think, probably haven't been made available because they didn't know that it was legal. And it's absolutely legal. They're doing it in all of the other communities in Ohio. It's absolutely paramount to even to helping with COVID. Putting people out of shelters on the street is not helping them stop the spread of COVID. It actually encourages it, in my opinion. That folks need to be in a place where they can have masks available, where they can have hand sanitizer and other sanitary services available, and where they can be encouraged to social distance and have a place to sit down or sleep where they can social distance, where it's possible. So supervised shelters are the best place and way to do this, in my opinion. So we want to make that available, or encourage some other places to make that available, and we need your help. If you are watching online and you're moved to do so, you can go to Inside Out Youth's Facebook page. There's a donate button at the top of the page. And please consider giving to this cause. It's a worthy cause, and we'll make sure that every penny that you spend, none of it's going to administrative services. I personally am a full-time volunteer. None of the money's coming to me or any of our staff. What we need, any of our administrative staff, what we need are to gather resources to help with this problem. It really is a big problem, and it's going to be an expensive problem. We need to, if we do something at our building, or if we do something at someone else's facility, somebody's still going to have to buy some beds and some cots, and somebody's going to have to buy some furniture, and it's going to take dozens of people to staff a place for 24-hour care. And that's going to cost money, folks. That's going to take some work. Maybe the Lord's put it on your heart. You'd like to volunteer. For every hour that you volunteer, someone else. We don't have to raise the money to pay someone for that hour. So, if the Lord moves you to do so, I'm going to put a link on this page in the comments section to a form that you can fill out online with your contact information if you feel like you might have some time available or some skills that you could contribute to helping with this cause. So I'd like to ask you to consider those two things. One, consider what time you might have available to volunteer to help, or what financial resources you might have to contribute to this problem, to helping to resolve this problem here in Springfield, Ohio. I'm absolutely certain that if we put our heads together and our hands together and open our hearts, that we can completely alleviate this problem. So I think that Inside Out and City of God Church can partner together to provide an immediate shelter, an immediate place of shelter and refuge. We can provide immediate food to folks that are hungry and that are homeless right now. We also have a relationship with the PATH, Integrated Health Services. I don't know if you've heard of the PATH. They're a wonderful organization. They provide a wide array of health services, mental health services for families, individuals, and groups. They provide counseling services, group therapy, individual therapy, and we already have a wonderful relationship with them, working with our youth department. And they have committed to get involved in this program to help develop case plans and service plans for every person that would want to come in and receive some help here at our center, and help develop a long-term plan for to find out what the underlying problems are and how to help people get into uh, a situation where they won't become homeless again. And as we've considered this, and then of course through City of God Church, we're able to provide spiritual counsel and present the gospel. And I don't think there's anything more important than presenting the gospel of Jesus Christ to families and people in need. There's nothing that has made a bigger difference in my life and so many people that I know. And so those are the immediate things that I believe we can do as an organization and as a community to make a difference in this problem, with this situation. I don't believe that homelessness should continue to be a problem in Springfield, Ohio. There are enough resources, there's enough space available, there's enough food available, and I've got to believe that there are enough people available. I've got to believe that there are enough caring people available. This has also caused us to envision a long-term plan. We're capable of establishing an emergency response right now to this problem, but as I've looked at this problem overall, I think we can also provide some long-term solutions. We have classroom space available, and there are people available that have some skills and giftings, life coaching giftings, so we can help folks with job training, job readiness, preparedness. We can help people. We envision establishing some classrooms to provide GED classes and education. And as I've already mentioned, these counseling services, the immediate emergency counseling services, we can also provide long-term counseling through our relationship with the Path. They have an office right next door to our center where they can help people develop plans for what their individual needs are. And Inside Out also has a housing program. A lot of folks don't realize this, but we've long been in the one of our missions has been to help people, low and moderate income families, have decent, safe, and affordable housing. And so we're already in a position to help folks in this program transition into long-term housing, both rental housing and hopefully some of these folks will become homeowners as they go on. So there's a tremendous thing. We can take this problem, this terrible situation that people are enduring right now, and if we come together, if folks like you will help, and we continue to pray, and we continue to put our heads and hearts and hands together, I'm absolutely certain that we can turn this into a big plus. We can completely eliminate the problem in Springfield as it exists, and instead put people on a path to wholeness, on a path to prosperity, on a path to a future of joy and goodness. So I'm hoping, praying that you'll help me, help us, help Inside Out and City of God Church. Please leave your comments below. Please consider giving. Use the donate button, like I said, on Inside Out's either webpage or on Inside Out's Facebook page. Is probably the easiest way to do it, just here on this live feed. And feel free to hit me up, send me a private message if you have any questions, or post a comment right here. So thanks for listening. I know it's been a little long, but I really appreciate your time. God bless you.